Welcome back to another video feature of the Immersive Worlds Handbook. Today I am lying down inside of the Algerian pavilion, as you can see, and I wanted to talk a little bit about technology in the Expo. If you've had a chance to read over the Immersive Worlds Handbook, certainly talk about using technology, and in this case, location-based technology is really key. The Expo has created I think a pretty amazing app, and if you turn on your location services, as you can see here, it will show you your current location, and you can actually then click anywhere on the map as such and click on the information, and it tells you exactly what you need to know about the pavilion or the restaurant and so forth. The other thing is the app is very sophisticated, so you can actually go in and click on the events that are going on during the day. You can click on, in addition to the map, you can explore all the themes of the various pavilions. There is a social media section, so that is going to have things like Twitter feeds and feeds from all the Expo pavilions. And the pavilions themselves, I've only downloaded the official app, but the pavilions themselves also have apps that go along with each of the pavilions. So anyway, I wanted to focus a little bit today on this use of technology here, and just basically consider its significance in terms of spaces like these that allow the guest to have a better sense of location and information and context when you're in a space like this.
Okay, so you can see me here. I'm trying to use the app here, waiting in line on my cell phone. I have to say I didn't have a lot of luck using the app when I was there, and it could have been the issues with my cell phone because I didn't have an international signal. I was hooked up to the Wi-Fi, but I found that I couldn't take full advantage of it, which was unfortunate because I wanted to try some of the pavilion apps while I was at the Expo. Now this shows you some of the features that were offered by the main app for the Expo. And again, I think the idea of augmenting your reality, augmenting your visit, your immersion, is a key one to think about for designers, whether in Expo spaces or any themed or immersive space. So you can have that opportunity to personalize the experience and at the same time to increase the depth of immersion or to give the guest more information, more context about a particular space that he or she might be visiting. So I think it's an important aspect of the new types of themed and immersive spaces that we see around the world. Okay, now another issue that comes up when we're talking about the virtual Expo or the Expo as augmented by different apps is indeed this notion of whether or not maybe we don't any longer need the Expo in a physical sense, but we can instead rely on a virtual version. And I had a chance recently to acquire the catalog from the Shanghai Expo in 2020, which unfortunately I did not get a chance to attend. But one of the things you realize when you, even in going through a program like this, it is the fact that there's much more to be had at an Expo from just a virtual experience. And indeed, if you have a chance to look through any Expo catalog, including those going well back in time, you realize that there is incredibly impressive architecture, structures of an iconic nature, experiences that are one of a kind, certainly within the realm of any themed or immersive space. Now, going through an album like this, you certainly can't experience the Expo. You can go to YouTube, you can consult videos, not unlike the videos I've created. And then what's interesting in today's day and age is they have these incredible virtual simulations here. And I had a chance to look at some of this today, and I wanted to take you through some of this and basically just ask the question, what about, since we have the apps and now we have technology like this, should we move towards a virtual Expo? So you can see here what's pretty interesting. This is outside of Germany, the Field of Dreams, is you have this incredible ability to go anywhere virtually. And certainly with Google Earth, we're familiar with this kind of technology in today's day and age. So to go back to the main website, you can see here, start up the experience. They have the map of the entire Expo ground, And indeed, you could choose any number of points. And I don't think they have everything here, but as an example, we can click right in the middle here, and you get a sense of what everything looks like. And I would offer that this is very similar, I think, to what you see maybe on Google Maps. I'm just moving around here, and I'm looking at the features here. You can, I guess we're getting some sound here from the actual Expo app. You can share this tour, you can pause, you can, I guess, turn the audio on and off, which I should have done earlier. It looks like maybe there's also some video you can play. So if we go back to the map itself, let's see, what would be an interesting one to pick? Let's pick the US Pavilion. Okay, see what's available. Okay, so in this case, yeah, it looks like, I'm clicking here. So this has, information, textual information about the pavilion itself. What I was trying to do is actually go inside, and maybe that is not an option here. What about Germany? Okay, same thing. I can click on, get the information, the basic overview of the information about the pavilion. So, well, unfortunately, it doesn't appear that in that case I can actually do what I was doing here, which is quite amazing, which is actually being able to move around virtually within the space. So I think that you could say that is one of the limitations with anything like this, right? You can't fully experience things. You can get a general overview, right? You can see what the spaces look like. They put in lens flares and so forth, but there's nothing immersive about this per se. This is no different than maybe what we would get if you went to an architect's website and looked at the overview of a pavilion or any other space. It's cool, but it doesn't necessarily allow you to get wrapped up in the intensity and the sensory experiences of what we see in the actual pavilions at the Expo, whether in Milan or other expos coming up or in the past. So in my mind then, I don't think that this should overtake what we do in the Expo. My suggestion would be to say that, as opposed to it overtaking or replacing the physical Expo, this can be used very effectively to enhance the guest experience. Indeed, I could imagine situations where you could create, through virtual technology, overlays, whether they be maps or other structures like this, on top of the space as it's existing, and then by using handheld devices, iPads or mobile phones, smart devices, you could experience augmented reality, you could see overlays, different experiences. You could have comments being provided by other guests within the space, which I've mentioned in some other videos, that this is a danger, I think, for any organizer or creator of a space, is if you have someone else commenting on it, what if they focus on the flaws? So some of the overlays that are potential with this technology may not be acceptable to designers or operators of those spaces. So something to think about, but I caution us against any ideas that we should move towards a virtual expo and get rid of the amazement that we experience as visitors who immerse ourselves in the spaces and pavilions of the expos. Okay, so at this point I wanted to talk a bit more about the app experience as it relates to the World Expo. As I mentioned in a previous, the first part of this video, I didn't get to use as much of that technology as I wanted to. And in particular, I was excited about, I can show you on my timeline here of Final Cut Pro in creating this actual video, that in the case of the Japan app, there was a lot you could do on site. They divided it into different experiences, and then that could impact how you experienced those parts of the pavilion. As I've said before, I didn't get a chance to actually visit Japan and the pavilion experience. So I was disappointed overall that I didn't have that opportunity, and also to take advantage of some of the cool apps that were available, most notably in Japan. Now, I talked earlier about the main Expo app and how that worked, and simplistic in some ways, but I think effective in that it allowed you to potentially get more wrapped up in a space, or to more effectively plan your visit to the Expo, because in some cases you are dealing with big crowds, and the apps can have a totally practical purpose and say nothing or do nothing in terms of the actual immersive experience. So there are, in a sense, two ways we can think about apps for the Expo.
One is the very practical utilitarian. How do I get around? Create my own itineraries, showing me where I went, how far I walked, showing in the case of here, the Malaysian pavilion, at a certain time, there will be a performance coming up or some lecture. That's very practical. Now the second use, as I alluded to in the case of Japan, is making the experience more immersive, allowing you to take things home, allowing you to leave some feedback, allowing you to gain a greater appreciation of something within the pavilion at hand. Now then also, okay, and so moving beyond the main app itself, one of the things we can do is look at some of the apps that are available. This is not the full number of apps that are available, and certainly not every pavilion had one. So in the case here, and maybe I should turn on the sound, and I think it may ask me to turn on Bluetooth as well. Okay, so this is for Azerbaijan, and I will show you here on the secondary calendar. Sorry, on the I will show you in the secondary camera some of that experience. So this right is what showing us a video, and it's probably the same thing, very similar to what we would see inside the pavilion itself. And certainly very well done from a production standpoint, very well done. Okay. We can click off that. Let's see what else is available. Show you here on this camera. Attention traveler. The contents of this section are only visible for registered users that visit the Azerbaijan pavilion. So part of the problem here, click OK, is I am trying to do this after the fact again. I struggle to do this during my visit. Again, I'm trying to click on this and I can't use it. And I guess that's one of the issues. Now, what they have is you can play this game, and some of these apps will do this on site, and potentially you could then win a trip, in this case, to a city in Azerbaijan. So that's kind of cool. That allows the guest on site or off site to collect things. There are prizes involved. This has all the practical stuff, information about how to get to the pavilion, different events, app info, and so forth. Okay, and it says here about the use of Bluetooth. So clearly a lot of these apps are relying on Bluetooth location base, where pinging of signals is possible between the guest's device, the app, and the actual pavilion. Okay, so we can go back and take a look at a few others. Here's the Austria app. As you can see here, Breathe Austria, which is the prominent theme that is the focus of the app if you had a chance to watch my video on it. Okay, it's loading here. Okay, it's taking a second to load up. As you can see, we're waiting for that. Okay, so now that it's loaded, you see here we have a virtual experience, and it is not unlike what we saw of the experience of the virtual expo that was provided through the main website of the Milan Expo. Okay, so virtual experience showing us the pavilion, and it is certainly a really impressive pavilion experience. And let's see here, we're getting sounds. Oh, this is pretty cool. So it's taking us through, and we're getting the sound experience as well. You can hear some of that. The sounds of nature. Click on the next page, the welcome page. I'll try to do this so you can actually see it. And this is very similar to what you see as you move through the pavilion experience. A really nice virtual visualization of this. Just trying to click on next and see what's happening here. Okay, let me see what's available. Basically what you can do on this app is there are all these spaces that you can view, and then you choose those and it will take you through the spaces basically. You can choose your language. So primarily this is one of those that is focused on visualization.
So it's focusing on trying to show you what it's like to be in the space. And I think that's kind of cool because it allows the guests to maybe plan their visit, and they can decide whether they want to visit the pavilion and prioritize that in terms of their experiences at the expo. Here's the US app here. The orientation is switching around. You can see here they include their Twitter feeds, and that's a big point for a lot of the apps, is to have your social media feeds as part of the app experience. Let's see, so it has maps available. Go and look at the maps here, the US Pavilion. It also has a detailing of the exhibits, the vertical farm, and so forth. It looks like a fairly straightforward My Events. So you could essentially add your own events again, and then this has the schedule for each of the days. The expo here, as we near the end of October, is coming to a close, and so we're seeing the last few events here that are coming up. So the US app, it appears to me, somewhat basic, just in the sense of what is provided. But as I said, there is a pretty extensive, as we wait for this to load up here, focus in a lot of these apps on the social media side of things. This is the Instagram page. It takes you to the Instagram page associated with the US Pavilion. Okay, so we leave that app, and we can also then move, let's see, to another one, United Arab Emirates app here. And if you remember my video, this was one of my favorites in terms of just the immersive experience and all the wonderful technologies that were used inside. Okay, now we're coming to a point here. I really wish I could show you this in person. So this is one of these where it's going to have markers on site, as you can see here, and get a ton of reflection. It's a black screen, but basically the point of this is you could hold this over that marker. You could then click it, and it's going to unlock content for you. And I really wish I could do that. Because to me, that's one of the coolest things about using this technology on site. This was done a lot in Shanghai, where people could collect things with their devices, or even devices that were provided. And I think you saw that Germany with the Seed Book, many other pavilions had other devices besides the mobile ones we are accustomed to that the guests could use in this space. And to me, this was quite exciting, because I think sometimes we're too glued to these devices when we're in a space, whether it's our iPads or our smartphones, smart devices, whatever. So it's something to think about as far as future designs, to try to take advantage and leverage new technologies to actually get us away from these things that Marshall McLuhan might say, right, are appendages of our body. Now this is going back to the UAE's app here. You can see it has a layout of the pavilion space. We can also look at, this has some information about the, I'm thinking right here, this is the ramp area. Yeah, this is pretty cool. So if you saw my video on the United Arab Emirates Pavilion, you recall there were these cool boxes available. So what they've done here is they've recreated some of those virtually for us. Again, we're getting a bit of a reflection because it's a fairly black screen, so apologize for that. But that is kind of cool. So showing us another version of what you actually see physically on site. There is a kids corner, and a lot of the Expo pavilions had games for kids, and I remember Kuwait, as an example, had quite a few. And so what you can do here is download this game and then play it, and then that relates back to the Expo experience. You also have panoramas. 360 panoramas represent the extraordinary, beautiful, and varied landscapes of the United Arab Emirates. And we can click on one of those and experience that. Let's see what it's like. Sound as well. And let's see, is it? Aha, how fun. Okay, so again, with motion-based stuff, or stuff that allows us to tilt, right, move around, very, very, very cool, right? So as a virtual experience, it's pretty neat. We can click on things here, and it tells us information. I'm trying to keep that on the screen, but it basically tells us information about what we're looking at. So again, a cool virtual augmentation of what we see in the physical spaces of the Expo.
And I just lost the app here. My iPad went dead, but I wanted to pull that back up and show you one last thing. Is they're focusing on Expo 2020, which will be held in Dubai. So certainly it's a great opportunity to advertise a little bit what is coming up. And you can see some of the themes, and they also then have some visualizations for that. So I think a well-rounded app here with United Arab Emirates. Again, Japan, to show you that, I would love to do this on site, but as I showed you earlier, you have the different experiences. And when I click on this, let's see. Let's try hitting start. Okay, let's go to settings. It's asking us to connect to Bluetooth. Let's see if that does anything. It may actually not, just because I'm thinking it's Bluetooth that you have to use on site to interact, but we'll try it. I doubt it's going to work. Let's see what happens. It's loading up. Okay. Insert your smartphone. So this I did want to show you this. So this is pretty cool. It says here, when your phone is placed correctly, round light will appear. Then touch photos can be collected in your phone. So check that out. So the idea is that you can basically touch anything within the space of the Japan Pavilion, put your smartphone in there, and then you can collect those items when you go home. I think this is really cool because for me, this suggests that the guest is able to take something with him or her after they've experienced it. This is describing one of the performances. They have a cool, I did find some videos online, they have a cool virtual table experience, virtual chopsticks, there's a performance. It's one of the few shows that I noted at the entire Expo in Milan. Let's see, did we click on innovation? It's giving us information here. Okay, and this is fairly traditional text. It's basically telling us about some of the themes of the pavilion that we can look at. So again, I wish that I could show you more of this in the actual use on site. It also does have a floor map that's available of the pavilion spaces, loading up there. And what else is available? Tutorial. This app uses microphone and Bluetooth, it's telling us. And what else? Pavilion rules, image credits. So yeah, fairly straightforward. You can also, of course, choose basic settings, the language. And this is one advantage. I think it's the same thing if you're going into a museum in today's day and age. You don't have to have a lot of expensive equipment. If people already have their own devices and you can have them download in any language the audio track commentary, in the case of a museum that explains the exhibits, it's a very effective way to do something simple for the guest that's quite meaningful and important in terms of the information and content that he or she gets while on site. I won't take you through all of these. This is Mexico's I'm looking at now, and this one, as well as some of the other apps, allows you to take the QR codes that are available and to basically scan those on site, and then that allows you to get more information. I saw this in every pavilion I can remember. Offhand, I'm remembering here as I go to my Expo folder, I think it was a pavilion of Hungary that had this on the outside, if I scan through here. So you can see here below, let me see if I can, let's see here. Okay, so actually here then, I was able to find this from the Pavilion of Hungary. So basically what you would do is you would scan the QR code, as you might know, and then that gives you more information about in this case, the art and so forth. So it's another way with using fairly simple technology to give the guest more information to enhance his or her experience while on site. So as we move away from the Mexico app, we can look next at Kuwait. And Kuwait, in my recollection, let me see here. There are video galleries available. Again, this shows you some of the information that you also can see on site. In some cases, it can do a little bit more. Excuse me. It can actually give the guest, for say touristic purposes or even investment purposes, whoever might be interested in more information,
Okay, and again here on the Kuwait app, you can also see you can click on the objectives, and it discusses briefly here what the objectives of the pavilion are. So not one of the more extensive ones, but again, there are different reasons and purposes for these apps, and certainly we could investigate their purposes and how they help or hinder a guest experience. Hopefully don't hinder the guest experience, but again, I think if you looked too much with the device in hand or looked at your device too much, it's going to distract you, ironically enough, from the immersive experiences that you get while at the Expo. Okay, this one here is the cluster app, and I haven't looked at a cluster one, so we'll look at it. This is for the cacao and chocolate, and it's saying here I don't want to get notifications. Okay, so I guess right now it's showing us the activity, the feed of people, and then my feed, I could add something. So if I wanted to, I could add a message, I could tweet that, Facebook it, and so forth. Create a post. It's kind of cool. It's a way for the guest to leave an impression. Let's see, I'm clicking on users now. This will show us maybe who is active right now. A lot of people, looks like. News. Okay, there's some news available of the cluster, as you can see. That's mainly telling us events. We can click on the agenda as well. And as we saw in a lot of other pavilions with their apps, you could click back on my agenda and basically add your own event if you wanted to do that. It's also then allowing us to see the countries. You could select the country here. As you can see, we'll do that. Click on Ghana. See what we get. Oops, try again, please. Gabon. Let's see what happens. Okay, so it's basically telling us then just a bit of information about that country. Now, I guess I would say, and I didn't have a chance to look at the other clusters, I guess I would say that this is one of those practical apps, right? So it's giving us the social media feeds, but I would suggest that you could do that with any handheld device, just going onto Twitter, going onto Facebook, searching the hashtags or searching by a particular keyword. Do you really need an app for that? Now, I would say, I guess, for the scanner stuff and the QR codes, as this has, again, the opportunity is I could use this to click, take a picture, and then get more information. So that is fairly useful. Okay, and looking these over again, I didn't download all of the apps, but I gave you a selection of them, and I wanted to use this video feature to focus on how apps might be transforming our understanding of the World Expo. And as I said earlier, I think it's a way to augment the guest experience. There's that practical focus that allows us to give the guest information, orient him or her in the space, create events, give them basic information about how to make their experience more meaningful in that very practical sense. And then secondly is that immersive experience, as we saw in this video with the virtual tour, that allows the guest to experience things in a new way. Add on top of that the augmented stuff with some of the things that we saw perhaps in the case of the Japanese pavilion, and all of a sudden you have a new experience, and the immersion that the guest is getting is, I don't want to say better, but maybe more meaningful, different, more profound in some experiential ways than just visiting the physical space on its own. So hybrid technology, hybrid approaches to immersion, I think could very well be the future of the use of apps at the World Expo to come in future years.
Like this. So please come back for additional video features of the Immersive Worlds Handbook.